Hi, everybody. I'm Meredith Pope, Mrs. Alabama Earth, and I have the amazing privilege today to introduce you and interview my good friend and my go-to gal, Jennifer Hankey. Jennifer is the owner of the Green Queen Company, and I can't wait for her to tell you about that and listen to her story. It's amazing. Thank you, Jennifer. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited. How are you doing? You look fantastic.
Thank you, girl. Well, Jennifer and I have been friends for a long time, and she, like I said, is our go-to for questions. I text her, what do I do? How do I do this? So I wanted my listening audience, if you will, to meet you and listen to your story. Tell us about how you started the Green Queen and what inspired you.
Well, I grew up just like I think everybody else in the South did, eating nothing but macaroni and cheese and hot dogs and grits and used bleach. And I was just like everybody else. And then I had a daughter who was born with 19 food allergies and covered in eczema, and it completely changed my life. And I started wondering why children today are so sick. I didn't hardly know anybody with allergies or those problems when I was growing up. And it started me down this long rabbit hole of what was in our environment, what's in our products, what are we being exposed to, and what's making kids today have all of these problems.
Yes.
So my company, Green Queen, is a non-toxic home services company. It was born out of necessity. I could not find a company to provide green cleaning options that I thought did a good job, because I think a lot of the compromise with this, even the topics we're going to talk today, is you feel like it's such a lifestyle overhaul. And what you want is you want the same thing and you want the same life, but you want to be a contributor, or you want to reduce the toxins, but you don't want to have a completely different life. So I just created a company that did exactly the same thing that we're used to with cleaning and with pest control and mosquito, but we just don't use the toxic chemicals.
And I can testify, I'm a customer of Jennifer's and it works. I was very skeptical, but I trusted you as a friend. And I said, you know what, if Jennifer believes it, I believe it. And it really does work. So one thing that I do want to say that, is really important for me to talk about with everyone today is that, one thing I admire about you is that you make it seem easy for us. And that's one of my goals as Mrs. Alabama Earth is to help moms and wives like you and I come up with easy strategies to make recycling and living a greener lifestyle more feasible. It is very overwhelming and intimidating for the average person, myself included. And today, I think that Jennifer has some cool ideas and techniques for us to learn easy strategies to make this green life more feasible for us.
Absolutely. And I always tell my children and everybody that you can't eat an elephant all at once. You have to take one bite at a time. And it is the same as, people who want to diet or lose weight. And if you get these huge plans, you can't change your whole life in a minute. So you have to take small, tangible, doable steps, and you just pick one, and then you get that one down. And when that's 3 weeks or 3 months, then you succeed. Then you do another one, and you can look back in a year or 5 years, and your life's completely different, but you didn't feel completely overwhelmed by it. So on the recycling piece, it's really interesting. I was indoctrinated for a little while out in California, and then I was sent back to Georgia to teach all of my fellow Southerners about recycling, because there really wasn't any recycling when I came back to mention. And it is very daunting and overwhelming, because we all want to do the right thing, but we don't want to spend millions of years. And, so what I've done is I've come up with a little pile here, and you can't see it, but I'll show it to you, of things that you can definitely recycle, and then things you definitely cannot recycle. And then you'll need to, if you feel like you're super inspired and you want to find out specifically in your own area, because it does vary, like what specific beyond these, then go for it. I encourage it. But this is just a basic, simple step. The first thing you need to do is get a bin. These days, it's pretty easy. I got to be such a big recycler. The place actually gave me 2 bins. So
yes.
I know, but that was pretty exciting. But let's just start with the basics. So things that you can always recycle are magazines. So things that Meredith is in, because she's so beautiful and awesome, you can recycle your magazines.
Awesome.
You can recycle basic paper, just like anything that you would think, but you can't, or you shouldn't recycle paper that may have glue on it.
Oh,
or glitter glue. Think about that. They need clean slates of things to recycle. So there's a great rule: if you don't take anything else away from today, when in doubt, leave it out. Because when you put something that contaminates, then they have to throw out the whole, I mean, sometimes the whole truckload.
oh
And
no.
so all of this hard work goes out the window. So you're better off if you look at something, you go, that doesn't seem like really obvious, put it in the trash, okay? Make your work count. So that would be one of them. The other thing is cardboard boxes. So all of those wonderful Amazon boxes, you can recycle those. You cannot throw them in the trash in a perfect shape along with all the tape all over them and expect them to be recycled. So you do have to actually break them down. My husband is a very good breaker downer. He'll take the tape off and make them flat. And then your recycling guys will like you a lot better because you don't, and your neighbors, because you won't have huge piles of boxed trash all over everywhere. Okay? So all of your just regular boxes can be recycled. So I usually break those down. It only takes 1.5 seconds because I just like to have more room in my recycling.
Right.
The other one that's pretty obvious is going to be your plastic bottles. One of the things, if you get really inspired, is to try to find ways to use less plastic in the first place. It does use a lot of energy to recycle. And in some cases, it can actually use more energy, and it may not be as even good to recycle as not recycle. I don't want to get all into that, but try to reduce the amount. Go get one of those filtered, stainless steel water bottles instead of using these plastics. And that's a really good way just to kind of curb the amount of plastic. But your plastic bottles, your milk cartons, all of those kind of basic plastics can be recycled.
Milk carton was what I was going to ask you about. The milk carton, that was.
Milk cartons are great. Now, this is the trick though, and this is where it stumps a lot of people. They have to be clean.
Right.
So if you're recycling plastic and glass and it still has food residues, you've now contaminated it. So if you had a horrible day, you got 3 kids that are screaming at you, the dog's got problems, and you're just like, I don't care. Put it in the trash before you recycle it, because you're not helping if you put it in the recycling bin. Give yourself some grace, put it in the trash, and try to do better next time, okay? Another thing, just any sort of just plastics, and we're gonna go through these next. They all have little triangles on the bottoms with numbers. If you see a triangle with numbers, some of them can, and some of them cannot be recycled. And I'm gonna talk about that last, okay?
Okay.
Your foodstuffs, like your peanut butters or things like that, typically are in recyclable containers. So you can almost rest assured that almost anything that your food comes in can be recycled. So that's another one you can do also. Also, your canned goods. Canned goods are a great recycle. That's always something that every kind of district can recycle. This gets a little bit, and then this gets a little bit trickier, is glass. Now, I love glass because when you are in a district that can recycle, it's actually the best thing to recycle, and it's really usable, and it's just a good product. But not all places recycle glass, and I did not know that. I had moved from one home to another. My previous home could recycle glass. The new one could not. I did not. I had been throwing glass and glass and glass in there, and then I found out it could not be recycled. So please be sure to check. There is definitely more availability if you look around. It kind of depends on where you live. Like in California where I live, they actually dug through your trash and picked out the recycling stuff. So that's why the taxes are so high. And then of course
doing that in Atlanta too.
Yeah, exactly. And then of course all your like little glass, the lids, that's questionable. Sometimes they can, sometimes they cannot. So when in doubt, throw it out. If you know that they take glass, go ahead, clean it out and put it in your recycling bin. Leave the lid out, okay, unless you decide that you want to research on the lid. Okay?
Yeah, I didn't know that about the lid. That's a big, a big point, everybody. Right?
Yeah, because that's metal and it's also lined with a plastic, and so that depends on what their capabilities are. Okay. So that is just a good general idea of basics, and that's going to cover a lot of things. If you look at your foodstuffs in your pantry and things like that, I mean, Amazon these days, I mean, come on, your paper bags if you go to the grocery store, but why don't you buy reusable bags? That's a great way just to reduce the amount of products that you're recycling. Let's talk about really quick about things you cannot recycle or you really, really have to look into it. Some really inspired places are starting to recycle some of these, but in general, I would give it a no, especially in the South. Plastic bags. So one of the biggest mistakes people do is they'll take a plastic bag and then they stuff all of their recycling into the plastic bag and then they throw it into the recycling bin.
I did.
You can,
5
hey,
years.
listen,
5 years I did it.
I did it for years
Broke
too.
my
When
heart.
first
I found
started,
out.
I thought, what a great idea. Like I'm actually consolidating and whatever, don't do it. But even the food bags, things like that, they get all caught up in the machines. And so unless you have a specific place, now they can recycle those in certain grocery stores. So a lot of people will keep them under the sink and then kind of pile them inside of each other. The next time you go to the grocery store, a lot of those grocery stores now have just a bin. You can throw those in separate. So that's kind of cool.
I've seen that. Right. And I always forget to do it, but I do have a big stack by the door hanging up. And every time I leave for the grocery store, I think to myself, Meredith, go get those bags. And then I get halfway at the store and I forget, but I will do that. That's
I think that's, hey, and that's the part of being, we're trying to raise children and do life. So, we're just doing the best we can, right? Every little tiny step you do. I always like to say it's like having an ocean liner. If you change it 1 degree in 100 miles, you end up in a totally different location. So it's just baby steps, and it matters. The other thing I think people really get thrown off is all these random plastic. Like this was on my Christmas wrap. This was, inside of a bag. I've got, some detergent. When in doubt, leave it out. Almost all of these cannot be recycled in most places. So if you've got plastics, you don't know what kind of plastic it is. Occasionally, these plastics here, you'll actually see a number on them, like in that triangle I'm going to talk about. And so you can generally do it. If they see a number, they know what type of plastic it is. But when in doubt, leave it out. Another thing is that and I know this because my husband has taught me what you should not throw in there because he tries to recycle everything.
Oh, yeah.
So you get a nice little a cardboard box, but then you have this plastic inside of it, right? Mm-hmm. So you'll throw the whole thing in the bin. Right. You can't do that because you got to get this out of there before you recycle that, okay? So they're completely separate events, if you will. All of your cheap plastic ornaments. One of the things I used to try to recycle, which is not recyclable, is Easter eggs. So think about the massive quantity of Easter eggs that are wasted every year. So now what I do is I recollect my Easter eggs, I put them in a box, and I use them every year because it's such a waste. And it's these one-time use plastics are really where we're getting caught. Yes. So just start thinking about all that cheap stuff made in China that we just have. It just accumulates all the stuff. One of the other things I stopped doing was giving those little gift bags for birthdays. Like it's really sweet, and I'm Southern, so I appreciate, the gesture, but give them something that's not just a bunch of, 5-cent things that are just going to go straight into the landfill. Right. There's other ways to show appreciation. We started just videotaping our children opening the gifts and then sending it to the person as a thank you, because I think they enjoy more watching the child open the gift. That's wonderful. And that's a bigger thank you, in my opinion, than the giving away the plastics.
And the parents appreciate that too much more. I remember one time a mom gave us as a gift in the gift bag, it was a whistle. And I wanted to just go to her ear and blow that whistle as many times as my kids did. I'm like, a whistle?
Yeah,
yes, that's a really good idea.
Yeah, so it's just, the whole point is appreciation, right? Yeah. And then paper towels. Some people try to do paper towels. You cannot recycle paper towels. So on that note, that just kind of gives you a nice basic idea. I think if you just pick 2 things, say I'm going to start, recycling my plastic bottles and my cans, and everything else I'm not going to worry about. And then once you feel like I got this down, then you can move on to another thing. Pick whatever feels doable for you, because when you get and it's so easy as moms, like, I'm going to save the world and I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. And you make such a big list for yourself that you just collapse and you like, I'm going to die. I can't do this. I can't save the world. I can't even save myself.
Right.
Yeah. So just be kind to yourself. So we're going to do a quick education really quick on the what we were talking about, the types of plastics. Now, this is going to be a combination of recycling and toxicity because I can't help myself.
We love it.
Yeah, so there are 7 different triangle options, and then there are ones that have nothing. So my rule of thumb is if I don't see a triangle, I do not like that plastic.
Okay.
I don't know if that plastic can be recycled, so I cannot put it in the recycling bin. It's probably a mix of all sorts of toxic plastics. I don't want to eat out of it. I don't want to drink out of it. And so avoid those. So you're going to look at the bottom. There's going to be a little triangle on there, and there's going to be a number in the center. The first one is a 1, and that is it's called a PET, which is polyethylene tetrathalate. So say that 10 times fast. But a great way just to think about it is 1 is 1. So 1 is good for one-time use. You can use it one time. So the bad thing is now you've got a single-use plastic. These are really, really bad for the environment because look at how much plastic I just used. I'm putting in a landfill that's going to last 10,000 years before it breaks down so I could have some water. That's why it's always good if you want to get yourself like a Yeti or something like that, okay? But 1 for 1. What happens a lot of times is people try to reuse these. So they'll be like, I'm just going to keep filling it up with water. Well, the problem is this plastic breaks down. And then you start getting exposed to the chemicals, which are called phthalates inside of them, which are endocrine disruptors. They mimic estrogen in the body. You don't want to take or eat or drink or put things in your body that mimic estrogen in your body because it's linked to breast cancer, premature puberty, obesity, a lot of different things. People will leave it out in the sunshine. So sunshine breaks these down faster also. So the chemicals will then leach into your water. Or if I think about this, if this actually came from Fiji, which it says it does, think about how many times this has been heated up and cooled probably until I received it. So just as a health thing and not even the environment thing, but for both, these are generally products you want to avoid, but don't beat yourself up over it. I know that's a tall task, but it is important to know what you're getting into. All right. The second one, which is the number 2, it's the HDPE. So I have some supplements here. So this is a number 2. This is a high density polyethylene. So the way I've always taught people is the safest, best plastics are 2, 4, and 5. So I think about my kids get out of school at 2:45 in the afternoon. My kids don't actually get out of school at 2, but I can always remember that now because it's 2:45. So when I look at the bottom, I'm always looking for a 2, a 4, or a 5. So this is one of your safer choices of plastics is a number 2. And these are very, very common, okay? The number 3 is PVC. I actually don't own PVC, so I wasn't able to show it to you. But what PVC makes is, think of your artificial Christmas trees. Think of PVC piping. Think of anything that makes something small, like pliable shower curtains. You know that shower curtain smell? Yeah. Things like that. That's all made from PVC. PVC in general is very high in lead. It cannot be recycled. And it also is very toxic to you. Like an artificial Christmas tree, when they test them, are typically hundreds of times the amount of safe level for lead. Also think about artificial grass is also made with PVC. Mm-hmm. So if you get into something like that, you're going to want to research the company and make sure that they're lead free or they're testing for lead. They almost never do. So that's just something Christmas lights. So when I hang my Christmas lights, I wash my hands afterwards because massive amounts of lead comes out on those. They also cannot be recycled.
That's amazing to know. That is really, I have always wondered about the numbers. I knew the triangle meant that it was recyclable, but I didn't know the different numbers. So what I learned from you just then is 1 is 1, which is brilliant, one-time use. And right. I am reading so much about the different chemicals in this plastic, and it's frightening. So I think the biggest thing is we as moms and wives just need to be aware. And that's one of the reasons why I started this little, Wayne's World show that I've started on recycling and on the environment, is because it is so important just to pick 1 or 2 things, like you said, and make those your own and make that a change in your home. So that's, yeah. fantastic. And the 245 is brilliant as well. I love that.
Yeah. So, and also just because it has a triangle doesn't mean it can be recycled. It means that it tells you what kind of plastic it is.
That's right. Yeah.
So 1, 2, 4, and 5 can be, but but it does at least tell you what to do. But it is, I mean, and I think it's nice that the recycling and toxic chemicals kind of goes hand in hand. So if you do make a little bit of improvement on one, you kind of get a double banger, which is
exactly. That
Number
is fantastic. And I also learned about the lids. I didn't know anything. I always put the lids in as well. So that's really important. Now, one quick question. So what about the lid on, you know how you had your medicine bottle? Is that the same rule for that one, or is that the same type of material?
I leave all lids off and out unless I know better. Because just because the bottle is made of the plastic doesn't mean the top is.
Good point. Again, when in doubt, leave it out.
And then I'm going to go I know we're running out of time, so I just want to hit the last few here. So number 4 is a low density polyethylene. So those are also typically what you see in food containers. Again, 2, 4, 5 are your good choices, so you can leave that one in. Number 5 is polypropylene. You've probably seen that. That's medicine bottles, straws. Now those are a safer plastic, and they can be recycled, but they're just, I don't know if you've probably started hearing about the turtles, and it's really, really bad for our sea creatures. Yogurt containers, things like that. So those again are one of the quote good plastics. Okay. Number 6, and this is a sample of that. Number 6, I don't have a sample of that either because that's polystyrene, which is styrofoam. So think about, Chick-fil-A cups, a lot of takeout food places, things like that. They are made with polystyrene. These are not recyclable. They're basically impossible to recycle. Think of when you order meat online in bulk and it comes in those big things, those are also not recyclable. So that's also terrible for your body to get that inside of your body. And then the last one is number 7. This is just kind of a hodgepodge of everything else left over. It also includes all of the products that contain BPA. Number 7 cannot be recycled. And BPA is also, again, one of those artificial estrogens that we want to avoid just for health reasons. So, and don't be fooled by BPA free. That is a marketing thing because they've just switched to another chemical called BPS, and it's exactly the same thing, or BPF. And then they call it BPA free. And then you think as a mom, I did the right thing. I got a BPA free. Instead, don't ever live your life to avoid things. Live your life by choosing what you know to be. So if you know a 2, 4, and 5 is safe, buy 2, 4s and 5s, then you don't have to worry about what these manufacturers are doing and saying, not in here and not in here, because it's usually misleading.
That's great advice. And I can honestly say I do not need any more estrogen right now. So I am going to really take this seriously, okay?
Yeah, our daughters don't need any more estrogen.
My daughter certainly doesn't need any more. My goodness. Yeah. So fantastic advice. I love it. I love what you said about, just pick 2 or 3 things, you guys, and don't try to build Rome in a day. Let's start small. And that's one of the reasons why I love this organization, the Mrs. Earth organization. It is talking about beauty with a purpose, beauty for a cause. And my cause is educating on recycling. I was guilty. I was that one who put everything in the bag and put it in the recycling bin for 5 years. And I think you probably remember that. I think you were probably one of the first ones I called and told that I was just devastated that I had been doing that. So I'm taking away from this, when in doubt, leave it out. And we're going to pick 2 or 3 things, you guys, and focus on for 3 weeks until after Christmas. And start small and make a big change with small.
That's right. Very small, something doable.
Okay, so we're going to end real quick with, so your company is in Georgia and now you've expanded to South Carolina, is that right?
I'm in North Carolina and Charlotte and Raleigh currently, and we'll be opening up in Nashville and Charleston soon. So.
Oh, fantastic. Well, you guys, you're missing out if you have not heard of the Green Queen. Check her out online at greenqueen.com. Is that right?
TheGreenQueen.com, yes.
Greenqueen.com. Check her out, you guys. Thanks so much for having the time today to talk with us. It was invaluable, and it's so good to see you. I miss you, and this is a good chance to get to catch up with my buddy. Okay.
Thank you, Meredith. Thank you for what you're doing.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.